think all the best teams and most successful teams and clubs have competitive training. It has to be. You can't mess around all week and then turn up on a Saturday afternoon and expect everything just to click into place.
So you come from a very, very prominent football household. Did you feel any pressure to go into football at all? Were you naturally passionate about it?
Naturally passionate about it, but it was actually the opposite, probably, to being pressured. It was almost look at every other thing and a lot of other opportunities first. And education was a priority in the house, and we were always encouraged. That always came before football, sport, or anything else. Having done O levels, as there were in those days, I stayed on to do A levels. Probably because I wasn't good enough as well, probably to start playing at 16, but didn't really start playing football professionally until I was 18.
Obviously, you talk about education there, and obviously the career you've had throughout football. I mean, how much emphasis and importance do you place on education for people that maybe want to be a coach, a manager, or work in any position within sport?
Everything within football, and we encourage players as well to try and do things because a player's week is hardly filled with long hours. They train for a couple of hours a day, and there's an awful lot of the day left to fill, which is one of the reasons why a lot of players get in trouble because they have time and money and opportunity. And it leads to gambling problems. It can lead to drug problems and anything else that goes with those things. So I think if they can also, players can find something educational to do, it would benefit them. But certainly anybody else within football as well. Educating and learning is as important as anything within the job.
And obviously going back to your younger days as a player, what was it like to have your dad as your manager? I mean, my dad was my coach at a silly youth level. Obviously, you were in the first division of the Premier League. How was that?
Interesting, the majority of the time, and I've thought about it more in probably recent years than previously. That everybody says to me, it must have been difficult and everything, but it was also difficult for him. Because a few years earlier they were winning European Cups at Forest and everything, and there were still a few of the players around from that time, Ian Bowyer, John Robertson, Gary Birtles. So I think it must have been very difficult for him to introduce his son into that dressing room and into that team that had been so successful. And you have to prove yourself. You have to prove yourself to the other players that you can help them on a Saturday and get 3 points. After that, I don't really think that they care who you are. If you want a winning mentality and you're in a winning team, if you can help the team, then they'll accept you.
And were there any lessons you took from him into your own managerial career?
Oh, numerous. Too many to mention, but just being honest, the honesty with the players, I think, more than anything. And having worked for the likes of him, and then Graham Souness and Bobby Robson and Graham Taylor and even Alan Ball at Manchester City, they were all honest with you. I think when you go in, and it's I think with any job, if you go in and you've been left out of the team and why am I left out of the team, and somebody starts waffling and giving you a load of rubbish, you very quickly lose the respect of that person. You'd rather just be told. And certainly at Forest, you were told in no uncertain terms why you weren't playing or why you were doing something or whatever. And then you knew where you stood. There was no grey area. I've asked you to do that. You didn't do it. Move on. Next time you did it. And that was it. And you weren't, these days, you spend a lot of time as a coach or a manager going over the same things with players and repeating the same messages. In the days when, I don't want to sound too old, but in the days when we were playing, you didn't get those opportunities in terms of you were told once or twice, and if you didn't take it on board and act upon it, then you were out.
And then obviously, you moved from Forest to Liverpool as a player. At the time, it was big money. Did you feel the pressure of that price tag at all going up to Mansfield?
Not especially. It was more the pressure of just going to a club the size of Liverpool. And they were at a stage where they were trying to get back to the glory days of the 80s, the early 90s, and Graham Souness had an incredibly difficult job in managing the club and bringing the different factions together. Probably factions is the wrong word. The different areas of the team and the squad together, because you've got the players who've been so successful, Ian Rushers, Ronnie Whelan, Steve Nicol, Bruce Grobbelaar, people like this, who wanted to maintain their place in the team and at the club. I think he was trying to slowly phase them out, introduce his own players, and also bring some youngsters through. So he had sort of 2 or 3 different groups within the dressing room, and it takes a time, that sort of thing, I think, to gel, and never quite got the time to do that. But I certainly think the emergence of the likes of Steve McManaman and Robbie Fowler, who went on to play many years, Jamie Redknapp was coming through. I think they were the new generation that the club was going to build upon.
Well, at least on to the next question. Naturally, obviously, you see Robbie Fowler was coming through. Ian Rush was already there. You're all competing for the same position in the team. How competitive was training to kind of get ahead of them into the first 11?
It was competitive because it was a club with a winning mentality, and I think all the best teams and most successful teams and clubs have competitive training. It has to be. You can't mess around all week and then turn up on a Saturday afternoon and expect everything just to click into place. You do training and practicing for a reason, to take it into a Saturday afternoon. So, but the squad was full of internationals and full of good players. So you knew that you weren't, probably at Forest to a certain degree, you knew that your place was assured a little bit more. But at places like Liverpool, then you have to fight for a bit more, especially with the likes of Robbie Fowler coming through. He was an exceptional goal. He was an exceptional finisher and goal scorer, and Ian Rush, who we talked about as well. 2 of the most prolific and best finishers that you'll see in English football. And
then at 32, I believe, you became player manager at Burton Albion.
Yeah.
Was it in the Southern League at the time? And obviously, so you leave kind of the professional leagues behind. What was that? Talk to me about that decision process. Kind of drop down the leagues. Was that kind of looking forward to a managerial career ultimately?
Yeah, it wasn't. I didn't look that far ahead at the time. I'd left Manchester City and phoned around a few clubs trying to get interested, and there wasn't too many takers. We just had our son, I think, 5 months, 6 months before, so I was very conscious. I didn't want to travel too far. I want to spend some time with him and raising the family. And there was a player. There was only 2 jobs available, I think, in the country at the time. Certainly one professionally. That was Leeds United. Now, with the family history, I didn't think there was much chance of getting the job at Leeds United. So the other one was just about 20 minutes down the road from where we live at Burton Albion. Didn't really know too much about it, but I knew that there was a vacancy. Contacted the chairman and said, "Would you be interested in sort of a player manager's role?" And everything went from there. Never dreamt for 1 minute that it would last sort of 10 years and we would have the success, but ended up, I wanted to keep playing in some way as well, and ended up playing over 300 games for the club, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
And obviously you had two different spells there in a kind of a managerial role. Obviously ended up with getting to the championship, so an incredible amount of success. I mean, like your time at Forest, is there a case sometimes for players and managers that you just get it and fit with certain clubs?
Yeah, I think you feel comfortable and it feels right. I think that comes over time as well. It doesn't, you walk in the door the first day. I don't think anybody thinks, "Oh, this is brilliant from the first day I walk in and everything's right." It takes time to mould that experience, I think, and to get the right people around you. It's interesting. One of the coaching courses that we went on, we had a very interesting speaker from business, Sachi, and he said, "I never understand football." He said, "It takes at least 3 years to have a major impact when you go into a business." And well, we get 13 months in the championship if you're lucky. So football is a business like no other in terms of that. And you need to get that time. When you are given that time, you see the results and you see the success like Liverpool have had and Manchester City have had, and Manchester United with Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. You see they really are able to build a club in their mould, and it reflects, the clubs reflect their personality, any more than Liverpool in the last 4 or 5 years, and now reflects Jurgen Klopp and Manchester City and the Guardiola the same. So, but I think a lot of managers aren't given that time to make it feel right and make it feel like home in their place.
Yeah, how did you find that transition from a player to coach to manager? Obviously, you were kind of in the middle as well with that as a player coach. How was that transition work?
Difficult. It's difficult when you're managing and playing and you're out there and you're coming at half time. You might be losing. You know you're not having the best of game, but you still got to bollock somebody else because they're not having a good game, and you know that they're looking at you thinking, "Well, hold on a minute, you're not doing so well yourself at the moment," but you've still got to do that managerial role at half time. And once again, you have good people around you. I've worked for 20 odd years with Gary Crosby, who played with at Forest. Always been sort of with him, and he's been a great help in that, especially the early days of being a player manager. But playing's the most important and most enjoyable thing you'll do. As a footballer, once you finish playing, everything's downhill to a certain degree. You don't get the same feeling, the same enjoyment, self-fulfillment, satisfaction, whatever you want to say, from whatever you do. Football is an absolute pinnacle of if you're passionate about it. And if you feel a certain way about it, actually playing football on a Saturday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday night, running out in front of a crowd, being part of that team, scoring, making a goal, whatever it is, that feeling is incredibly difficult to replace. And once again, maybe an indication of why footballers do struggle when they finish playing at times.
And so looking across your managerial career, obviously you managed some massive football clubs. Is there any particular moment you pick out as your proudest at all?
Well, at each club there's been particular achievements. I think keeping Derby up in the first when we arrived, because in the January there was what's called in football a whiff of relegation around the place. We had 39 underperforming professionals, and it was ironic really that the one that would been sort of really told to stay away from the club and had no future at the club was Robbie Savage, and he was the one in the end that was probably as good a player and as good a professional as there was at the club at the time, and he was the one that had been outed, unfortunately, so we got him back in the fold and he became our captain and did very well for us. So staying up first of all, and then over the next 4.5 years we're very pleased how we developed the club in terms of revamp the academy. We've got Darren Wassell, who's still there producing players now, and they're still producing players because of that. We've got Will Hughes through, we've got Jeff Hendrick through, we've got Mason Bennett through. And also we reduced the wage bill by 60% over 4.5 years and left them with a team that got into the top 6 and were a kick away from reaching the Premier League. So very, very proud of that. Went to Sheffield United. They were in the bottom few of League One. All the owners said to us when we got there kept saying to us, "Can you keep us out of League Two?" That's what the constant message was from the owners. Can you keep us out of League Two? Despite hitting bottom of the league on February the 1st, we finished 7th that season, broke the club record of clean sheets and managed to reach an FA Cup semi-final, which we narrowly lost at Wembley. So, and then the second season we got to the playoffs, lost in a bizarre game, and also got to a League Cup semi-final. That was from 18 months earlier, being saying, "Can you keep us out of League Two?" But unfortunately, it wasn't deemed good enough, and we got the sack. And then at Burton, we took over a team that were actually top of the league in the December. Managed to scrape promotion automatic, and from the Dr. Martins League, 15 years earlier, 16 years earlier, whatever, to actually make it to the Championship, which is the 4th or 5th biggest league in Europe. Absolutely remarkable achievement for the club.
The highs and lows of football in 2 minutes there. I think that was.
There you go.
So looking obviously the game now, so VAR's in the headlines every single day. How do you view VAR? Is it going to benefit the game long term?
I think long term it will. I think we've got a lot of teething problems with it at the moment, and I think people have got to decide how we use it, how it's best to be used. The officials have to play a major role in that, and the players what do you want it used for? What do you need help with? I think it's shown some very, very good things showing up, which when you watch a game, you think that's a penalty or not a penalty, and then you watch it back and you think, oh, I was wrong about that. And it's very difficult with the speed of the game to see things with the naked eye. But I don't agree with the handball when somebody's got the back turned, as we saw Tottenham, Newcastle. That's just ridiculous. That's got no place in football at all. And I'm not sure about the being off by 2 millimeters offside and things like that. I don't think it was intended for that. So I think we need to fine tune how we use it and what we use it for.
And obviously this year has been a year like no other across the planet. But football, Can you foresee any of the short-term or long-term impacts that this COVID situation is going to have on the game?
At the lower level, outside the Premier League, it will. We've just witnessed a transfer window where Premier League clubs spent £1.2 billion in the last few weeks. So I don't see a great deal of problem, although they're losing match day income. Now that is quite a small proportion of their overall income into the club. So I don't see it being a major problem long term. I would think the Championship's in a little sort of bubble itself, but will need some sort of, I think, governance and help. But the biggest worry is for League One, League Two and below, those sorts of clubs who rely, it's a big percentage of their income, the gate money, the crowd money, the programmes, the hospitality, and it's if they can survive without that. I know that a lot of contracts at those levels have come down in terms of player wages. I don't see that happening in the Premier League, which I find a little bit strange because that's the area where it can be afforded. If the average wage in the Premier League of a player is £4 million a year, then I think there's a little bit of wiggle room there to maybe reduce them slightly to help out the players in League One and League Two without affecting their lifestyle and without affecting their wealth in the long term. You know, a 5-year contract in the Premier League average is worth £20 million. If we were to give up 2% of that, I think it would go an awful long way to help League One and League Two and below that.
Are there any managers in the game right now that you would play for, do you think?
I've known him a few years and played against him. Dean Smith, who's doing such a wonderful job at Aston Villa, and Richard O'Kelly, and I think they've got a great setup there. I've always thought Dean was very straight, hard-working and very good, and always had tough times against his teams. They've always played football, always been genuine teams. So I'm delighted to see him doing so well, and I think you can see the sorts of managers that players want to play for. Obviously, you see that at the highest level in Klopp at Liverpool, where it's how you treat the players as human beings as much as anything else. It's not so much what you do on the training pitch and all that sort of thing. I think the best managers are the ones who have most empathy with the players and the best relationship with the players. And I think the top managers, and certainly Jurgen Klopp has that. I think Guardiola has it when things are going well for him. You see how close they are as a team. The challenge is maintaining that when things aren't going well. And every manager falls out with players and everything. But it'll be interesting to see how Liverpool react to the 7-2. It was great because I thought he went on TV and did brilliant. He didn't criticise his players. He obviously, in general terms, said it. It wasn't good enough and that, but wasn't individually critical to them, personally critical to them. And I thought the best comment he said was, and as a manager, you look at it and say, you get all the rubbish out of the way in one game, get all the crap out of the way, you make all your mistakes, rather than do it over 4 games where you lose 2-1, 2-0, 1-0, and you make these mistakes. Have an absolute stinker sometimes. You lose 3 points and move on to the next one.
And this is the final question for you, Nigel, is obviously students you spoke to a while ago, they want to go on and work in football and sport in whatever capacity that might be. What advice can you give them going forward to go on and have a successful career in football and sport?
Get your foot in the door wherever you can, in whatever area that you're passionate about and that you're most interested in. Whether that's analysis, coaching, whatever, media. If you get into a club, we've had it at Burton, at Sheffield United, and at Derby, where interns come in during the university term and during their course, and we like them, and then get in touch when you leave university, and we have ended up employing quite a few of them. So I think once you get in somewhere and you prove that you can be an asset to that club and you're good to be around the place and you fit in with the culture and the sort of team that you have there, I think that's the best way in. And the other Neil was saying that you have a good time with the National League. It's a brilliant grounding and a brilliant sort of experience to go and see what it's like at a football club, because it might not be for you. It's a special environment and a different environment to a lot of businesses, so it might not be for you. So go and have a little look around the National League or whatever, if you can have some experience there, League One and League Two, and see where you go from there.
Nigel, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate that.
Pleasure, Neil.